What's up, guys? Now we're going to talk about dying e-commerce platforms and why they're dying and the concepts behind it as well. So we just talked about why marketplace to marketplace. So if you look at arbitrage in general, so what arbitrage is basically, I'm going to sum it up as a simple thing that I think of it. It's buying low, selling high, and you're taking that margin in between. So why marketplace to marketplace, or why eBay? Why let's focus on. We talk about why marketplace to marketplace. Now let's talk about these dying platforms. So eBay is actually a dying platform, right? So you can see their revenue is starting to drop. You see that each year by, I think last year was about almost close to $1 billion, right? So they lost almost about $1 billion in revenue, even though they're still making the same amount of money because they're taxing sellers more and more and more, which is interesting. So they're taxing sellers more and more and more, and their revenue is going down. It's just so they can keep up the same profit, because if they don't, obviously they're going to have to start cutting staff. So eBay is what we call a dying platform. It's dropping revenue. Lacroi, OfferUp, all these other side platforms. These are what we call baby platforms or growing platforms, right? Or venture capital platforms. You're talking about venture capital as well. What venture capital is a group of investors that put money into a startup, and then it helps them grow. The money becomes useful for marketing, getting people on the platform, trying to generate revenue, all these different items and different things. So that's what Macari, OfferUp, and like Let Go and Facebook Marketplace. Not really Facebook. You can say Facebook Marketplace as well, because they're arbitraging their ad placement to put people on. So you're talking about all these different things, right? So obviously, eBay is a dying platform. These are baby platforms, or venture capital platforms, or growing platforms for sellers. So eBay, since it's a dying platform, there's the thing called the 4Ds. If you want to arbitrage or you want to be a reseller, you want to focus on the 4Ds: death, divorce, disaster, or downsize. Death is a bankruptcy. And obviously, you can talk about that as in a residential or a commercial way. We'll talk about commercial because we're talking about marketplaces, but that's the reason why estate sales, you can buy things very cheaply, right? So a death happens. So a death is a company going bankrupt, going under. That's when they liquidate all their assets. Um, divorce is just two companies splitting up. You can see this when eBay went across. So eBay gets hit with two things, right? We'll talk about it in a second. So divorce is like when two companies split apart, and you can kind of arbitrage in between those relatively easy. If there is a antitrust lawsuits, that's what happens as well. You can see that back in Microsoft days. So death, divorce, disaster. Disaster is an economic disaster, aka recession, or a even a earth disaster. If you look at like New Orleans with the hurricane, there was a lot of things that went really cheap because people just needed cash. And then there's a downsize, means things are starting to compress. They're trying to get tighter, and all the fat's getting trimmed off relatively fast. So eBay is what we call it is a divorce and a downsized company, right? So they're dropping in that revenue base, so they're downsizing, right? They're losing market share. They're starting to collapse in terms of getting rid of all the fat, which means that there's not a good company in general. I hope no one on eBay saw that. But there's not a good company in general, and they have a divorce, which we play off very good later down in the session, about how eBay and PayPal got divorced. Now we can hemorrhage inside, and it becomes very, very frothy as well, because they lack communication. It's like a husband and wife that got divorced, right? They're lacking communication, and their kid can play both sides relatively easy. So that's what we do with eBay and PayPal as well, which I think is fantastic and really, really worthwhile. On these growing marketplaces, or the venture capital marketplace, or any of these things, all this money is getting pumped in by venture capital. So venture capital pumps money into these platforms, right, to get them to grow. And there's always excess. There's always excess. So what we're doing is we're really taking this venture capital money, and we're kind of taking it off. You can see this. We'll sidetrack as you look at Uber. Why the rides in Uber and Lyft are so cheap? They're cheaper than they should be. That's why these companies are losing a lot of money. It's because the venture capital is really paying for your ride in terms, right? Not directly, but indirectly. So they're paying for your ride for Uber to grow or Lyft to grow. We're doing the exact same thing. OfferUp is really paying people, and Macari is really paying people to get on their sites, to sell on their sites in terms of like free stuff, using ad placement, a lot of different things. Even OfferUp was free at one point, right? So there's no If there's no fees involved, it means people can sell it there cheaper and still make the same price. So people are willing to negotiate more. Those are the things that really are interesting. Look at Facebook Marketplace. Facebook Marketplace, there's no fees, so people are more than willing to give you a better deal because they know they're not losing 15%, 20% to eBay or to any of these platforms. So that's the reason why these growth companies or these venture capital companies, except for obviously Facebook, because it just has a lot of money either way. It has $1 billion in cash, I think it was. All these companies, we're just picking off and then taking some of that profit or some of that excess fat, and we're just negotiating through it, and then taking some of that profit or that margin, and then just flipping it back on our main platform, aka the one that gets the most traffic, right? That's all we're doing with all this kind of stuff, and why the death, divorce, downsize, and disaster works out so well. We play off those all the time as resellers, as arbitrageurs. That's what we play off of. That's our go-to. That's why garage sales, estate sales, downsize sales. If you guys were on the flip game or you want to get in the flip game, that's the reason why those worked out so well. And they're actually cheap, really cheap, because they're off market as well. That's that one, and we'll jump in the next one in a second.